like to call this meeting to order. So let's start with roll call.
Councilmember Walter.
Present.
Councilmember Haskell, here. Councilmember Flynn.
Present.
Vice Mayor Hufty. Mayor Taylor.
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. All right. The next item on the agenda is oral communication. So this is an opportunity for the public to speak on anything that's not on tonight's agenda. So if you're here to speak to the Hawthorns, this is not the time. But if there's anything else you want to speak to that's not the Hawthorns, this is the time. So does anybody have any oral communications for the council? All right. So with that, I will close oral communications and move to the regular agenda. So Sarah, you have a staff report?
Yes. Good evening, Town Council. So I'm Sarah Kors, Planning and Building Director for the Town of Portola Valley. I have a brief presentation walkthrough. You just give me 1 second to share my screen. Perfect. Thank you. So I'm here to provide information and receive direction on the potential future town work plan for the Hawthorns area plan. So I wanted to orient everyone to the area that we're talking about. We're talking about the Hawthorns area, which is generally on the eastern side of the town of Portola Valley. Zooming in, this property is located primarily near the intersection of Portola Road and Alpine Road. So a bit of background on the Hawthorns area plan and property. In 2011, it was gifted to Mid-Peninsula Regional Open Space District, or as we call it, Mid-Pen. In 2021, there was a public access planning process that began. It was essentially the initiation of the Hawthorns area plan. In June of 2023, there was a public access working group formed that we know of as POG. They were initiated to further analyze or work through access related to the site or the area. In October of 2024, POG's recommendations were presented at a town council meeting here during a feedback session. And then lastly, in May of 2026, the Mid-Pen board approved the Hawthorns area plan action table and schematic parking designs as the basis for the project description to conduct CEQA. So there are a few different nuances related to the schematic designs, but I'd just like to point out the two that are the primary designs that have been shown and approved by the board. So in general, the schematic designs include loop trails as well as a parking lot near Portola Road and Alpine Road. So some of the designs or schematic designs include access to the parking lot that's taken from an existing driveway. And another schematic design also shows access to the parking lot taken from Portola Road and Alpine Road near that intersection. Plan that has been discussed when we talk about the Hawthorns area plan. When we consider the Hawthorns area plan as a project, as of right now, no permit applications have been submitted to the town. We are aware that Mid-Pen is looking to start the CEQA environmental review, potentially 2027, and that the town would be a CEQA responsible agency as well. So we're primarily here tonight, partly because there have been a lot of different questions as well as interest related to the Hawthorns area and what is potential work that could be done related to this area and the work that Mid-Pen has been doing. So staff did some initial look at what is work that staff could do, and we'll present 4 just potential options that we initially would like to present to you tonight and have a discussion around those. And I'd like to just point out that these are just initial options. There would have to be additional scope and budget attached to these. So it's a high level consideration of potential staff work related to Hawthorns area. So the first one is looking at potential CEQA project engagement work. So this would include retaining environmental consultant to support staff and legal counsel, as well as commenting on the notice of preparation and the draft or final EIR. The second thing related to this area and potential work would be the open space element and associated zoning regulations. So as of now, the town is overdue for an update to the open space element. And as part of the open space element update, there could also be additional rules and regulations to look at, including adopting parking, access, or grading standards along with that. In addition to that, there could be an option of a negotiated agreement with MidPenn. So this could maybe be modeled on the 1988 Windy Hill Limited Development Agreement. And this agreement could look at more holistically studying parking across Windy Hill as well as the Hawthorns area, so the MidPenn properties. And lastly, there could be work related to conservation easement enforcement. I will point out that the town has no standing to enforce the easement because it's not through the town, but there could be an opportunity where the Peninsula Open Space Trust or POST could act or assign the rights. Okay, so those are the four main options. When we're looking at that, just want to call out the budget considerations with these actions. So right now, there is no budget currently assigned for work related to the Hawthorns area in the 2026 to 2027 fiscal year. And current work is limited, considering what staff is doing right now, it's currently limited until additional budget authorization is made. And then based on tonight and council direction, staff will return with a proposed scope of work, budget, and staffing needs as well. So the consideration we're looking at is, should staff pursue one of the four work plan areas? And if there is consideration of like a priority preference of these four different areas that we discussed as well. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there clarifying questions for Sarah? Anybody on the side?
I do.
Okay, please go ahead.
Can you clarify the CEQA option? For example, if we pursued that, there's certain points in time where the town can respond. Would we need a CEQA consultant for those? Or is the town able to submit comments without a specific CEQA consultant?
I might also look to our town manager as well to assist because I know she is very well versed in the CEQA process. But I believe there would be the ability to hire a consultant. But I'll also have her provide a little bit more context as well.
Yes, and with that, I also want to introduce our legal counsel for this item, Mr. Bill Seligman. Fun fact about him, we go way back to the 90s. He's very esteemed. Our recommendation is that we would need to hire a consultant. This is a very specialized CEQA document, very extensive, and the town would be best served by having a skilled consultant to assist us.
Other questions, Rebecca? Okay, thank you. Judith?
Yeah, I think we got to take a step up to like orient me at least. Like this has been going on for a long time. There are 5 steps. We're at step number 4. And I am a little confused how one can get to this point without our having input or conversations. We have had participation in meetings through the POG, but is this pretty typical process to get all the way to CEQA where, frankly, if we find out we have issues, it seems more costly? I'm curious about where the process. Who wants to take that?
I would just clarify the process so far. I mean, it's been through MidPenn, POG, and some of the work that they've done. Those have always been open meetings. They do have a board. The schematic designs were presented to the board. So there's been opportunity, if you look at it from an individual community member perspective, to attend and provide feedback. And then there was also the 2024 presentation to town council where there was an initial presentation on the recommendations, which I believe started to point to the development of the different alternatives. But I have to go back to that staff report specifically.
Right. My question is different. Is it typical that a town having a similar project in it gets to this point without having more substantive participation directly? Is that pretty typical?
I would say it depends on the project specifically. I would be unsure for this type of project. I speaking from experience, most of our projects are single family homes or smaller development like that. And our engagement really doesn't happen until it becomes an actual application.
Mhm.
We encourage maybe pre-applications or discussions with, for example, our Architectural and Site Control Commission, but those, it's a different example. So I think this is a very unique project and circumstance for this town right now.
For us, I understand that, although we did have Windy Hill a long time ago now. All right. I don't know if it's appropriate for me to ask Mr. Seligman, since you have been in this space for a while, to comment on that.
Assuming I'm answering the same question.
Yes. Yes.
How's this? Is that
Great.
much better? Yeah, I can hear myself now. Okay. Yes. It certainly varies from community to community. Would be nothing to stop you from a legal standpoint from having input and engagement earlier in the process. But that depends on resource allocation and the nature of your relationship.
Okay. Thank you. That's helpful. And in terms of the four options, I mean, the general theme is, I think, what input can the town have into the project? Like these are options, because I want to make sure we're focused on what we're trying to solve for. And to me, the negotiated agreement presumes that, is it really focused on the parking only? Like, that's an issue we think we need to solve for. And is it focused on that? Or, because to me, there's like CEQA, we might get into differences of opinion on sufficiency. Open space, we can talk about regulation and zoning. Conservation easement, I get the point on we're not a party to it, but the negotiated agreement kind of presumes that there's something to negotiate, and I'm a little confused what that ask is.
I think with that one, we're identifying if there's work, an agreement could be a solution depending on the desire or approach with the town. I think that's also what we're receiving feedback on, is what is the approach. But if there's concern of parking or parking not being studied holistically, or looking at, are there alternatives, that could be an approach from that lens, is looking at an agreement, and there's been a similar one done.
Great. So if I think about it right, we both want to comment on if that's something to look at, and then we have the ability to inform you what we think that ought to focus on now or later. Like, you're looking for both, or are we limited to commenting on parking?
I'm open to council's feedback on
Yep.
the overall direction.
Super. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Mary?
I'm fine. No questions.
Ellen?
Thank you for this presentation. So for clarification, for the 4 areas of town work, do we get to pick one? Do we get to pick multiple? And obviously they cost more. Do we need to prioritize?
I mean, the last slide, there was kind of the 2 options. It was, which one do you have a preference for to work on, but also, is there a priority? And if we can't come to a decision tonight, I think the follow-up is doing additional research on what would staff time be and what would the budget be, and then that might provide clarity. And it might be difficult to decide exactly the budget, but if we can have some general idea of the interest of, like what Councilmember Haskell brought up, if the interest is the agreement related to parking, that we could consider what that would look like. The open space element is something the town should be doing eventually anyways, and it would probably be good to also have a general idea of staff time and cost for that too, but it could also relate to this area as well.
And do we have any, obviously CEQA probably being the most, consultant being the most expensive. Do we have any sense of what we think would be more expensive versus less expensive? And, as, we're in a deficit, we know we're in a deficit, for open space element and zoning regs versus negotiated agreement.
I don't have an opinion at the moment about the cost right now. So I'm unsure, and that would be something we'd have to look at.
Okay. And if we were to prioritize, say, negotiate agreement based on, Councilmember Haskell, we could still down the road weigh in on the CEQA, I'm assuming, right?
Well, we can always weigh in on CEQA. I think what you're hearing us ask is, should we scope this quite robustly in the sense of getting a consultant, making sure we have adequate funding for legal review? That would be a sort of, from a small, medium, large. That's what we're presenting tonight with those, with that added support is like a large. Something scaled back would be simpler, perhaps not encompass all the concerns that we've heard from the community or may hear from council or the planning commission ultimately. But you could point us in a range of options. And I would emphasize that CEQA is the one where the work is starting, right? We know that the Mid-Penn board awarded the contract, selected a consultant. Staff met with Mid-Penn staff this week, and we were told that the process is moving along, but that they will not be issuing what is considered the first step in the CEQA process, which is a notice of preparation, until 2027. But I would emphasize that if the town has to go and retain a consultant, we have to issue an RFP, select someone, and probably get a contract to you. So it's a 3 or 4 month process. And that assumes you want to allocate the budget for it too. So some things may take longer to onboard, whereas an agreement, another thing with an agreement is that it requires the other party obviously to engage. So you could say explore that, but it may not be viable depending on the other party involved. So I suggest that you maybe look at prioritization here and give us some guidance in terms of robustness of it, if you will, because they're not mutually exclusive. We just need direction to allow Sarah and her team to focus her efforts in the next month or two.
Great, thanks. Okay, other question. In terms of the zoning, open space element and zoning regs, right? Obviously the Mid-Penn Hawthorne site, I believe, remind me, I think it's single family residential zoning. Could you give me the actual zoning?
So it was provided in the packet. I would have to pull it up in the packet.
Right, okay.
It's residential estate. So
right.
the conservation, yeah. The zoning that is in place is what was in place when it was owned by the Woods family and residential.
Okay. And if we were to open up the open space element, and we would then update zoning for all open space, I take it?
That would depend on the process for the open space element, similar to how we're going through the housing element. It's an amendment, but housing element, you're looking at the land use and zoning and, what does the town want and what is the vision down to how is it going to be implemented? So there could be an opportunity to consider how the Hawthornes area fits within the overall town's kind of land use and zoning.
Great. Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. So I think my questions were mostly answered. I guess I'm still trying to understand a little bit, like on the CEQA timeline, the notice of preparation starts in 2027. But I mean, how long before there's actually something for us to comment on? Because you're saying a 3 or 4 month process. I guess I'm trying to understand a little bit, like, when does that process have to start if we want to engage on CEQA, assuming that Mid-Penn's not going to do anything until 2027. I mean, is that if we start in January, by the time they get their stuff together, we'll sort of dovetail? Or is it no, January 1, they're going to dump something. And if we hadn't started back in September or October, we're behind the 8 ball. So I'm trying to understand that timing a little bit.
It's the latter. So they could issue the NOP in January. They did not provide a date. They just told us it would be 2027. And yeah, we probably need 3 to 4 months to get ramped up. Now, the notice of preparation is the first stage where they say we're going to be preparing an EIR. These are the areas we're going to study? Do you have any other things you want us to study? And so sometimes that's all a very preliminary exercise. We perhaps could do it without a lot of support. But it could be an important step in the town's process to make sure that we assert what we want them to consider in the EIR. So it's each step in CEQA is very important, and the first step is important. So essentially, we need direction now if you want us to pursue the CEQA option. There may be other items that are less time sensitive, but an important thing to note with our open space element and land use regulations is that can take a long time, as you've seen with the housing element and the safety element. Those processes can take a long time, and we would definitely have to hire consultants for those too.
Right. Okay. And then my next one does lead into the open space element. So does an open space element just deal with anything that's open space in the town, regardless of its zoning, or does it have to be zoned open space for the open space element to apply to it? Because this is all RE, right now.
Yeah.
So
it applies to everything in the town that's open space. And right now we actually don't have a zoning that's open space. We have an inconsistent general plan and zoning. So the general plan is what you would start with. And we do have properties that are designated as open space. And I would suggest we examine that designation and whether it should be applied to other properties. And then you would implement the general plan through a zoning code. And we would recommend that they be tightened up so that they're vertically consistent, because they're inconsistent now, which doesn't conform to state law. But the open space element also deals with other factors. It deals with equity and access to open space and parks. So it's a pretty broad element.
Okay.
I don't know if Bill has anything to add.
No, nothing to add.
thank you. And just like you're suggesting, there's a 3 or 4 month potential processed time for CEQA. What do we think the process time is on the open space element, roughly? I mean, we talked
To get a consultant to scope it and get a consultant on board, probably 3 to 4 months.
Okay, and then the actual work is another 3 or 4 months.
No,
6 months,
it's
year?
probably 12 to 18 months
Okay.
to do an element like that, because we also have to do CEQA on our own land use plans. So that could be a long time.
And so is it realistic that we'd get an open space element done that would apply to this project, or would this project be on a faster timeline and we wouldn't get it done before decisions were being made?
It's possible they just line up.
Okay.
The CEQA process for MidPenn could be about 12 months,
Okay.
we think. And then they would submit their permit applications to the town. And that processing could be, 3, 6, 9 months. So then we're into 2028. So I would advise, if we want to do that, we should get some direction tonight so that we can at least start putting together like a scope of work and a budget to come back to you. But ideally they line up.
Okay.
And they're in effect.
Okay.
For the project applications.
So Helen would like to ask another question, then I'll finish up mine.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
For number 4, for the in terms of doing a negotiated agreement, if the other party is willing to deal with parking, obviously we have parking issues in other places in town. Sorry. So should we potentially separate the negotiated agreement out with a parking management plan before trying to negotiate something? If that makes any sense. I mean, obviously our other sites with parking issues are not part of the Hawthorne situation. But to do some sort of comprehensive parking plan so that then when we negotiate, we know what we're aiming for, if that makes sense.
I think that could be an option, and that I would assume could be part of that work plan option when we're talking about the negotiated agreement. If there's something you want us to look into that it should include addressing a parking management plan or other elements, and we can figure out what that might look like and come back to you.
Thank you.
All right. So then my last question, which is a follow-up on the negotiated agreement. Is it reasonable if we say, I mean, to me, a negotiated agreement is always a good thing because you talk to the other side. And if they're willing to talk to you and you work stuff out, that seems like always a better way than sort of battling it out. I guess my question is, if we say, oh, we're interested in negotiating agreement, will staff go and scope out what the possible kinds of negotiated agreements we might do are? Is that your thinking? Okay. So we're not trying to figure out the terms of the negotiated agreement in broad strokes. We're just saying, come back to us and tell us different ways you might be able to negotiate.
Yes, I think that would be the goal of what could towns' responsibility be in this to enter an agreement.
Okay, great. All right. So that,
I have
Yeah.
one. So, yeah, follow on.
okay, please go ahead, Judith.
Two questions. One is, do we have to do the whole open space element, or could we look at regulations that are most pointed? And where I'm going with this is we kind of have to be a little bit of a strike force given our budgetary constraints. And I want to know how to think about that. Clearly, it's better to do the whole 9 yards for consistency and to avoid waste, I think. But if our time is our enemy, what would we be able to do that's still profitable for us to be engaging in? And the second question while you're at it is on the open space piece. My understanding is that open space funding is not available for looking at the open space element and regs and things like that. If you could confirm that, that would be helpful.
Thank you for that question. So the timing and kind of taking out a piece, I wouldn't really even consider it part of like the open space element. But if I'm trying to think through if it would be updates to maybe zoning or regulations specifically, if town council has a priority to update certain regulations. For example, I know we've already discussed the need to update objective design standards, but maybe just for single family homes. So that's a very specific kind of targeted approach if that's a priority to update our standards. And so with the other zoning, I think there could be an option that way. I don't know what it would look like when you're considering the element and other aspects. I'd have to do more research on if there, I don't think you're asking there's a way to like start the open space element, but then maybe fast forward and you're just saying.
But the things that are possible for adjusting open space regulations, I'm not sure exactly what they are, but is there a piece of just line item regulations that we could consider instead of the whole 9 yards taking 15 plus months?
I believe so. I would say, if there's direction and alignment with the general plan and our overall plans, and it's implementing our current plans, because otherwise the updated open space element, then regulations would be implementing the new element.
Okay. I don't know that that's practical. I just needed to know. And then the cost, the funding for open space element, that's not eligible for open space funds, right?
I don't believe so, but I'll double check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
So my question actually is, one of them is a follow-up on Judith's question. When we consider the open space element, and more particularly the zoning regulations, and you mentioned a bunch in the report, things like could develop parking lot standards, could develop property access standards along scenic corridors, across trails, along major roadways. We could examine grading standards. I'm also aware that we don't have any kind of code written for developments of this type. We have it for municipal buildings. We have it for single family, multifamily, but we have nothing for a park or an open space. We have no development guidelines. So if the town were to move forward with those types of regulations, including a parking management plan type of thing, would that have an impact? Would that have an impact on this development? Would we then be able to have a say on this development or not?
The say would be ensuring that the project complies with those regulations. So it would depend on the regulations and what the town would adopt. So typically the regulations are, there's an opportunity for flexibility potentially to accommodate different development types. So, but if there's standards that can be followed, that would apply to that site.
So Mid-Penn would be required to,
If they were adopted before the projects got through the permitting process, I guess, in just a very overall summary.
and they would not be submitting until after their CEQA, correct?
Yes, so they're
Presumably.
they're on their own timeline, which as we said, CEQA wouldn't start until 2027. So.
But we would need to have all those new zoning codes and regulations in place before they submitted an application for planning. Is that my understanding correct?
Essentially, yeah, because it would, the application would adhere to the current standards.
And do you have any sense of a general cost for a CEQA expert? What that would entail? No.
I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. And then you had said you wanted us to provide you with priorities for what staff would work on for the next couple of months. I'm assuming that kind of maybe until the end of the year, but I guess my question is, what budget do we have available and what kind of time are you anticipating to be able, that's within our budget, to be able to take on this extra little project over the next couple months? What do we have? You have maybe a few hours here and there. What can actually be accomplished? Is it just coming back with scope and getting pricing for CEQA experts, or what exactly do you anticipate being able to accomplish in the next few months before before November per se?
It would be coming back with the scope and budget and potential recommendations that there would maybe be trade-offs, but we would do that full analysis of our budget because we haven't done that yet because there hasn't been direction provided to staff. So if we have direction, we can analyze what that scope is for staff. What is the budget? Is it even feasible? And let you guys know what would be feasible. What is the actual budget we can spend through the end of this year or starting, January 1. I know, fiscal year is June to July, but that would be when we come back to you, that we would be able to have that specific information, hopefully numbers, and have more of that kind of level of conversation.
And do you feel that you have staff bandwidth to be able to accomplish that in the next few months? That what you just defined, just defining scope and pricing?
This has been a request of town council, so we'll make the time to do this analysis. But the other part of the conversation is staff time to work on what's decided. So that would be that conversation as well of what would we be capable of doing, or part of the budget is would we need to hire a consultant? Is there additional help that we would need to do this? Or is there trade-offs with other projects as well?
But when you're talking about budget, you're talking about budget that's going to be spent in the next 4 months. Are you anticipating making a recommendation to hire a consultant, or you need a consultant in order to scope it out? I'm a little unclear when the money is being spent.
I'm not sure if I said that the work would be done in the next few months. I think we need to identify what that work would be, come back. Maybe that would take some time, and then it would be aligning the schedule of that work. I'm not sure if it's related to the next few months.
Okay. And then I guess my last question was just something that Darcy had mentioned, saying that, or maybe you did, that we have properties designated as open space in the general plan. And where I'm confused is those properties are designated open space in the general plan, but they are not, they're not zoned open space. Is that my understanding? Is that how it works, or?
Yeah, there is a bit of a discrepancy of what is visually shown on the plan versus the zoning. And that can happen, but we were just calling that out, that there really isn't specific zoning for open space right now, even though the general plan kind of calls it out as a land use.
And we have no verbiage, if you will, or no municipal code for open space. Is that correct? Or we already do have, and we just haven't put any properties into it?
No, it doesn't exist right now. So the properties are current for the zoning.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right. So let me close this section out. The only thing I just want to make sure you guys will investigate also on the open space element, whether we can fund it out of the open space fund. Okay, I'm not looking for an answer. I'm just looking for you to research the answer.
Yeah, but I think we answered that it can't be taken out of the fund. Correct.
Okay. 'Cause
We'll
I'm
we'll
not-
look into it.
Yeah, I would ask you to look into it because I know we talked about we can't use it on Mid-Penn project because it's not our project, but this is our element. So it might be different. And that's why I'm just asking you to research it.
Perfect. Thank
Great.
you. Yes, we will.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Okay, so I'm going to close out the questions for Sarah and I'm going to open it up for public comment. Let me remind everybody that you have 3 minutes. There's a lot of people here. And so I'm going to hold everybody pretty tightly to the 3 minutes. We've got some cards. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Uh,
So why don't we start with the cards? Then I'll ask for people who are in the room who didn't get a card, which is fine. You don't have to worry about getting a card. I'll come back. And then I'll go online. So with that,
Yes. First is Roberta Zarea.
Thank you.
welcome.
Thank you very much. Good evening, members of the Portola Valley Town Council and staff. I'm Roberta Sare, Superintendent of Portola Valley School District. I'm speaking with you tonight on behalf of the PVSD Board, families, and students to express our serious safety concerns regarding the Mid-Penn Hawthorne Area Access Plan proposals under consideration. Simply put, the options currently on the table are not acceptable to our district because they directly compromise the safety of our students, of approximately 100 students who travel that route daily. As a school district, we are legally required to ensure the safety of our children traveling to and from school. Operating in loco parentis, we carry both a strict duty of care and a moral responsibility to protect these students every step of the way. As you may know, PVSD and the town co-fund the afternoon crossing guard at Alpine and Portola Road. And for that, we thank you for that partnership. Adding another crossing guard is neither possible, practical, nor economically feasible. I have commissioned an ad hoc committee of our school board trustees to research this topic extensively and advocate directly on the behalf of our students and the PVSD community. Additionally, the district has consulted with a land use attorney, and I've already shared their full legal report with the town manager to review. We want to solve this problem together. The district is fully committed to working in partnership with the town council to protect Portola Valley's children. As a side note, we always strive to be good neighbors. One way we actively support our community is by opening the Corte Madera parking lot on weekends throughout the summer and after school hours. For local trail users, that's an access point that we believe renders a new parking lot at Hawthorne's entirely unnecessary. Let's keep working together to find a solution that puts the safety of our children first. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Bob Bauer.
Welcome, Bob.
Thank you. Thank you, council members. I'm Dr. Robert Bauer. I'm a trustee of the school board on the ad hoc committee that the superintendent has started. I'm here for two reasons: to tell you what our strategic intentions are and to stress the critical need for both of our agencies to take action now to resolve it without the implementation of options 9 or 10. As Superintendent Zare said, we conservatively estimate that 40% of the kids at CMS use the Alpine Trail every day, 180 days a year. That's 36,000 student transitions across what would be a new road with traffic. That's unacceptable to the school board, and we will take all necessary steps, legally and otherwise, in which to make sure that doesn't occur. The other thing I need to tell you is that in your packet today, as I see it, there has been FAQs provided to you that seem to be identical to the ones that came out from Mid-Penn. Those FAQs are incorrect at best and false in other cases. For example, it says that the school district was approached and asked to provide parking for the Hawthorne's property, and that we declined. In fact, the superintendent agreed to that kind of a solution. Why the staff said that in FAQs, I don't know. There are other things in the FAQ also that I find to be misleading at best, like it's saying that continual interactions with the town have been part of this. And the reason this is important is because they claim in the FAQs that Post has approved the abrogation, frankly, of the conservation easement. And I find that highly unlikely, especially if they understood that there are 36,000 student crossings that would be affected every day, 180 days of the year. So I want to emphasize to you today that we're prepared to use our resources to enforce the conservation easement, which, as you know, is being violated for both development in the undeveloped portion of the property, the removal of trees, and the grading. There's no reason at all for them to be having option 9 or 10 as being viable. And the only entity right now that has appropriate legal standing is Post in which to do that. So this also involves Post, as I must say. So one thing that I'm asking for today is that just like we formed a committee at our meeting last Thursday on Hawthorns, I would love for the town to choose 2 members of the town council to be on a Hawthorns committee, and for us to work together like we did when Windy Hill Open Space was in front of the town many years ago. I've been in town over 50 years, so I know when these things happen. Let's do that again when it comes to Hawthorns. And the reason that that's important is the town manager and our superintendent are working incredibly well together on this matter and want to collaborate. Let's do the same at the level of the elected officials of our 2 agencies. And our 2 agencies together are going to be stronger. We are prepared to use our legal resource. And that'll be my final point. We will pay for the lawyers because we're prepared to pay for them on our own. Wouldn't it be better if those legal actions that we have, that you have in front of you from the confidential memo that we shared with Darcy, wouldn't be better for us? So please consider forming a committee and forming a joint agency task force with the school district to address this issue. Thank you.
All right. I would say hold your applause, but I guess just keep the applause light. Who's next?
And next is Leslie Crease.
Welcome.
Hi. Hello, Town Council. I'm Leslie Crease. Most of you know me. I live at 1 Winter Creek. I'm one of your neighbors. And first of all, I'd like to say I really appreciate everything you do, and I'm very grateful for you. My concern with the Hawthorns is a little bit higher level, since I didn't know where this was going tonight. But there is a proverb: what's once done cannot easily be undone. And once an action is taken, it cannot easily be undone. Mid-Peninsula as an organization clearly understands its charters and its goals, hiking from well south of us through the peninsula and around the bay. Hawthorns is just a stop between locations south of us and onward to Windy Hill, and then someday El Miradora possibly, to connect to Thornwood, then to Teague Hill, Parissima Creek, Edgewood, and on up the peninsula. Depending on what happens with Hawthorns, this could put a lot of pressure on Portola Valley and our roads, especially with our anticipated influx of new housing and new neighbors and the construction for that. We don't want to overwhelm our roads with traffic, threaten our ability to evacuate in case of emergency, or just enjoy a beautiful day in our town. So I'm asking you, my town council, remember who you represent, and it's not Mid-Penn. Mid-Penn is very good and very well funded at representing itself. They have skills. The folks who live here and will be impacted every day going forward by the decisions the 5 of you make. Your job, as I see it, is to help us not to roll over for Mid-Penn, which is a concern of mine and a desire to be friends with them. We need to protect the safety of our residents and the quality of our life especially for those of us who live near Hawthorns. If you live up in Westridge or up in Los Trancos possibly, or in other parts of town, you won't be as impacted. But if you live near Hawthorns, the traffic is going to have a big impact on you. So I'm asking you to go slowly and thoughtfully, and perhaps in an evolutionary fashion, allowing Mid-Penn a minimal footprint, both in terms of parking and other aspects. And then if things go well, perhaps consider growth down the road. Because once something is done, though, you can't undo it. So let's grow them in an evolutionary fashion, not all at once. And again, I thank you. And I thank you all for running too.
Thank you, Leslie. All right, who's next?
Next is Lana Norris.
Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for this session and this opportunity to talk to you folks. I submitted a letter, and I'm assuming that you've had an opportunity to review it, so I'm not going to go over anything that's in that letter. I want to focus on, once again, the conservation easement. I have been spitting nickels about this conservation easement problem for years, literally years. You're well aware that every time anyone asks Mid-Penn to tell us how specific proposals that they're making comply with the easement's prohibitions, we don't get an answer. That's been going on for years. The frequently asked questions that were just put out by Mid-Penn this month increased my concern, because once again, there are non-answers. There are artful evasions. There are misleading statements. And I'm going to say they have to be intentional. They are intentional. And that's wrong. One problem, one inaccuracy, I'm going to have to speak quickly because the time is going, is in their frequently asked questions, where they say that they have had something like 40 meetings, etc., outreach. They go into all these examples of their outreaches, etc. And one of them was where they say they met with Portola Valley Ranch residents in January of 2025. Okay, I was present at that meeting in January of 2025. It was at Portola Valley Ranch. We are the most directly affected group of people because we are contiguous to the Hawthorns. We should have a huge voice in what is happening there. At that meeting, a group of us Portola Valley residents submitted questions in writing to the Mid-Penn representatives, and we asked for answers. And I will give just a couple of examples. We don't understand why Mid-Penn is planning for such a large parking area. Please explain. No answer. We asked, is it Mid-Penn's intention to use the Hawthorns as a hub? No answer. We talked about the conservation easement. We asked that it clearly violates the easement. Has Post or Mid-Penn gotten a legal opinion about that? No answer. Those are just some of the answers we didn't get. So I have a specific request tonight, and that is that the town use its weight and influence and bring it to bear on Mid-Penn. And I would like the town to take a stand in writing to Mid-Penn, confronting them about their violations of the easement. And by violations, I don't mean hostility, but that we want, we expect, and we're entitled to these answers we've been trying to get for years and years, and Mid-Penn and Post won't answer. And the same letter I would submit, the same letter should go to Post, because Post and Mid-Penn have this symbiotic relationship, and I'm going to call it what it is. It's conclusion. Thank you. I'm trying so hard. Oh, I have 28 seconds. Oh, good.
Yeah, you're over. I'm going to have to.
Oh, I am. I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is your 30 seconds over, so I'm going to have to ask you this.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm
Do you
sorry.
have like one last comment and then wrap it? Can you just wrap up?
Yeah, I'll wrap up really, really quickly. Post needs to know that its reputation and even its fundraising are at are being imperiled here. I used to support Post. I supported them financially. I supported them with my efforts. I told Post that I was done with them after they refused to answer any one of my questions about how the easement violations could occur. Not one answer. And so I'd like those
Thank you.
to go to Post and to Mid-Penn. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
3 minutes is tough.
I hear you.
Necessary,
but we have a lot of people I think that want to speak. So thank you. Yeah. But at the Supreme Court, there are few people that want to speak. Who's next?
Next is Linda Olson.
Linda?
Veronica, could you say the next person after Linda? So
Yeah,
we
and then
can move through
followed
it?
by Linda Brothers.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Welcome.
Thank you. Welcome. Good evening, everyone. My name is Linda Olson, and I live at 27 Valley Oak in Portola Valley Ranch. I have attended many Mid-Penn meetings concerning the Hawthorns project, and I really feel that Mid-Penn fell in love with their plan, and they had a difficult time understanding concerns that were raised. Overall, I'm very concerned that the Hawthorns project is being overdeveloped, excuse me, for this 79-acre mini boutique open space. I think for many visitors, it will be a one and done visit. It is just too small. As has been said previously, the proposed parking lot for 50 cars is ridiculous, and it should not be a hub for Windy Hill. We believe that the proposed parking lot violates the conservation easement. We oppose connectors to Sweet Springs due to fire, noise, and privacy issues. Portola Valley Ranch does not employ rangers to monitor the trails. We also oppose connectors to Valley Oak. Valley Oak is a street with a sidewalk. There is no Valley Oak trail. To connect to Upper Los Trancos Trail, you would have to walk in front of 20 homes. This is a neighborhood, not an open space. Finally, the Hawthorns project is distinct from other open spaces and therefore should be considered in a different way. It is unique, a small property surrounded by residential and commercial buildings. As Leslie said, please be thoughtful as you proceed with this project. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's after Linda? And Linda, before you start, can I get a sense, how many people in the room are still waiting to speak? Not that you've spoken. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. And I've got a couple online. I need to make sure we get done in time so the council can have some discussion. So Linda, please, welcome.
Before you start the clock, would you like me to give you a minute or two on SCUA because I think
No.
indicate a lack of
We're
understanding?
going to start the clock. We're
Okay.
a little too tight.
Okay.
I know you have a lot to add, but we're a little too tight tonight.
Well, there are some important points. Yeah, I'm not going to waste my time. As chair of the Planning Commission, I've been working with the amazing new staff we have to make sure that we're applying all of our land use laws regularly and consistently across the town. Part of that has been looking for some of the outstanding, if you will, in the sense of not dealt with conditional use permits. And not too long ago, we came across the conditional use permit for the Windy Hill parking area on Portola Road. I did that in my job as chair, and now what I'm about to say, this permit has not yet come to the commission, but once we found the conditional use permit, I went out to that parking lot with some traffic experts and made a couple of observations. I think these are of direct interest to the Hawthorns project, and quite frankly, I think it's work Mid-Penn should have done. They have a parking problem for sure at Windy Hill, but they have a peak problem. They do not have a problem all day long. The way you solve a peak problem is you regulate the lot. Why? And it's not in the permit that we have now. Are they not having patrollers, people out there patrolling it? Secondly, And that's really only on the weekends. And I could get more data, but I didn't in the time available to me either run cameras or drones. The existing lot is 48 spaces. It's described as that, with 2 spaces for handicap parking. However, the area could easily handle another 10 to 15, maybe even 20 additional spaces if it was set out properly. It is a gravel lot. However, there are techniques available for laying out parking areas, parking spaces in a gravel lot. So obviously that solves part of the Windy Hill parking problem, if you will. Remember that Mid-Penn has identified the Hawthorne project as part of their Windy Hill Preserve. So it is pretty obvious that they intend, and I think they've said this in some of their documents, for people to park there or walk along our town roads, either Alpine or Portola, to enter their parks. They do have a sign directing overflow traffic to the town center, but again, they don't have anybody there patrolling it. So additionally, Mid-Penn owns the property immediately available to that parking lot. There's an overwide road that could easily be modified, and that parking lot, according to the experts I've talked to, with very little problem, could be revised to add a total of 50 more spaces. Let's see. There's also existing problems with the dust. I don't usually write out my comments, but I want to digress for just a second.
So
I see the time, Craig.
Yeah. Okay.
But
I'm going to hold you to it.
I haven't gotten to the most important part. I'm going to read you part of the permit. Now I've lost my train of thought. Thank you very much. But anyway, the existing lot has some serious problems with dust, and I'm understanding that it also has problems with robberies. So the land use permit.
So Linda, we're 30 seconds over. I've got 6 people that want to talk, and the council needs to do. So what I would ask is, Linda, what I would ask is, could you send this in? Could you write this up and send it to us?
You've got it. I've already sent it to you.
Okay.
But I want to say, as I found out today, even though you don't want me to say it, you can cut off the microphone if you want, that the town has agreed that we will now undertake the periodic review set forth in this permit. And hopefully this will be before the Planning Commission very soon.
We'll look forward to it.
I could read that to you if I.
Thank you. Who's next?
Can we just line up the next 4 so that we can kind of get through it quickly? Thank you. Just keep everybody on tap. So there's not even time.
Hi, I'm Carter War. I'm on the
Okay.
AS.
Yep. Welcome, Carter.
Hi, I live at 260 Willowbrook Drive. I'm here to help you understand what I think the first step should be, rather than hiring consultants, is use your current legal counsel to remind Mid-Penn of what the real process is in Portola Valley on properties that are not zoned for the use that they intend to use it for. The open space use is not an allowed use, in the RE zoning district. There isn't any need, for the town to spend money on the open space element at this time. The town was originally, founded on and didn't zone properties, for specific uses, to provide the town with the opportunity to conditionally approve and conditionally manage those properties for special uses. It's a reason that Mid-Penn has an open has a conditional use permit for Windy Hill now. I don't think it's prudent to spend money on proactive work other than to remind Mid-Penn that the town does have the legal obligation to review their use under the current zoning and to deal with that zoning, unless Mid-Penn intends to change the zoning. And at that point, they can pay the bill, for the open space element, the rezoning. Use permit process gives the town the opportunity, to enforce the conservation easement, and or apply, subjective, design criteria, to protect, the portions of the property that I think we're all concerned about, including, the access ways, and the face of the hill that faces down towards Alpine Road. There's plenty in the existing zoning ordinance, to control this, and reminding them that those applications should be in place, prior to them reviewing CEQA. CEQA should be the last thing, and should be reviewed by the Planning Commission, rather than, having them do that in-house. They're just like any other property owner in town. They shouldn't be, given any special dispensation unless they're going to provide things to the town that, were not already being provided.
Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Charles Maroney, 25 Coyote Hill. I sent you a note about some of our previous work at Portola Valley Ranch. We originally opposed these issues at the ranch, had over 200 people sign a petition, over 100 homes, expressing the same concerns you've heard tonight. So I'm not going to re-talk about those, but I will point out that at the last Mid-Penn meeting, and I think Mr. Mayor, you were there, they decided to go ahead with CEQA. And part of the choice that was given to the Mid-Penn board was, we can go to the town council and we can negotiate some of these issues that we're all discussing here tonight. And they said, no, we're not going to do that because we've done that once before. Something with the same property, I think in the historic area on the other side. I'm not aware of it, but they said, we did that once. We waste a lot of time. We're not going to do this again. We're going to do CEQA. We're going to throw it over the transom, let them chew on it, and then they can get back to us. So if you're moving towards a negotiated settlement, at least I think you need to keep that in mind, because I don't think there's going to be negotiated settlement. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Who's next? Welcome.
Thank you, Town Council. I'm going to speed ahead. I have my remarks hopefully sent around. I want to throw my support, my straw vote in favor of the areas 3 and 4. That's engaging Mid-Penn and engaging Post as soon as we possibly can, to illustrate why it is high time to ask Post to join us at the table. They have a legal obligation to represent the terms of the existing conservation easement and to bring home why. Let's turn to the Mid-Penn's frequently asked questions, number 3 on agenda page 7. The question reads, does the conservation easement need to be altered to implement public access at the Hawthorne's property? The answer is longer, but I will dive into a couple of pieces. Mid-Penn's response draws from the conservation easement, section 6I, where the conservation easement states construction of a limited staging area around the perimeter of the improved portion as necessary to facilitate public access. Clear enough. 2 sentences later, Mid-Penn adds that there, and this is a quote, proposed parking lot options are located along the perimeter of the improved portion. That statement is 1/2 true and 1/2 not, as roughly half the proposed lots 9 and 10 are located in the unimproved portion. That requires a correction for the record. Secondly, the conservation easement was explicit about what is permitted. Quote, a staging area around the perimeter of the improved portion. Though Mid-Penn says, quote, the conservation easement does not state that the staging areas should be located within the improved portion. To understand this, context helps. I'm referring now to this map, as you all can see out there. It shows the improved and unimproved portions of the entire parcel. The improved portion is 42 plus acres. So around the perimeter of the improved portion covers a substantial circumference of the land area. Stretching that interpretation of what around means and what permitted means to justify that the easement actually affords development opportunities in the unimproved portion runs contrary to the plain language of the easement. It's going to be a challenge for Post to defend that position if, as Midpen has represented them, they are unwilling to alter the conservation easement. We need to make that point and to hear directly from them. That is the lone specific example my allocated time allows for. If and when you want to call on me to get more ideas, please do. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, who's next? Let's keep moving.
Hi, my name is Nona Chariello, and I'd like to speak as an individual rather than as a committee member tonight. I'd like to make 4 recommendations. 1, stay focused on 3 priorities: public safety, environmental protection, and public access, in that order. Midpen keeps saying no public access without parking. Portola Valley needs to say no parking without public safety and environmental protection. That's it. 2, evaluate legal means to challenge Midpen's interpretation of the Hawthorne's conservation easement. I won't say more about that. It's already been discussed. 3, proactively evaluate conflicts between the Hawthorne's area plan and Portola Valley ordinances. The town should proactively calculate the cut and fill of the parking schematics. To that number, add the cut and fill for the Hawthorne's trails that will be multi-use by hikers, dogs on leash, equestrians, and bicycles. With that constellation of users, the standard is a trail width of 10 feet at minimum, more if it is heavily used. If Midpen doesn't think there will be enough use to require a trail width of 10 to 14 feet, then there won't be enough use to justify a parking lot with 50 spaces. The amount of cut and fill can be calculated now, and it's a critical number for compliance with both the conservation easement and for Portola Valley's municipal code. 4, don't get drowned by Midpen's documentation. The volume of documents about Hawthorne's is daunting, and it's causing snafus even for Midpen. Midpen's written preface for the board's review of the action plan stated that the Planning and Natural Resource Committee, quote, collectively reviewed each section of the action table and identified missing data, needed clarifications, typographic errors, formatting problems, and numbering issues to address, end quote. That statement alone tells you that they know they have a lot to sort out. They still do. The action table that the board was asked to approve and did approve stated that the internal loop trail would be multi-use, whereas the maps show, including the maps you just saw and the maps that Sarah showed, those maps show that instead the multi-use trail is the primary loop trail. My point is that sorting through Midpen's mountain iterated documents needs a lot of eyes. Town committees, residents, and AI can help with that. We have been studying the Hawthornes for 7 years, and we are not done yet. Please call on us. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the schoolhouse? All right, let me go to Dave Cardinal.
Great. Hi, thanks. First of all, I love the tool set presentation that was given by the staff. I think those are our tools and they're in our toolbox. And I think what you're increasingly hearing tonight maybe is that it's not time to pick a tool. Maybe it's time to decide what we want. From what I can see, roughly, there's maybe 4 big issues: the size of the parking lot, the location of the parking lot having to do with retaining walls, where the exit is, and whether there's a trail connection. And maybe there's more, but if we knew what we wanted on those 4, I think we could go forward. And I dovetail that into what Carter said, which is, like him, I don't think it's like, fine, let's spend 4 months making up our mind what we want. It's not, nothing's going to happen. And I don't know that anything we spend money on in the next 4 months is going to change anything. So I think we need to get our act together and decide what's important to us. And then we can figure out, can we negotiate? Do we sue? Do we do CEQA? I don't know, whatever. But until then, if we don't know what we want, it's hard to know how to get there. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have a Zoom user hand up, maybe Dana. Need to unmute.
Yes, it's Dana. Unmute,
Yep.
Dana? Yes. Hi.
Yeah, we got you.
All right, thank you. I was glad to see Linda Brothers in the audience because Linda is a high-end CEQA attorney and she's chair of the Planning Commission. So if anybody on the staff needs to talk to a CEQA expert, talk to Linda and it'll save us some money, number one. And then for her comments, Windy Hill, I've been asking the town for decades to have the CUP of the Windy Hill parking lot changed. They could put another 15 cars in there. The other point I really want to make, and I feel strongly about this, is that the open space element is going to be changed. There must be a committee of residents. Unlike what happened with the safety element, I think anytime we touch our Constitution, there needs to be a committee of residents weighing in on it all the time. Thank you.
Thank you. Rita, you're up next.
Thank you for taking my comment. I think it's important to review our current ordinances. The Planning Commission meeting for next week has already been canceled. You know, we have not had an easy, consistent relationship with Mid-Penn over this particular project, and it's costing our town our own rights. Let's have the competent Planning Commission review these materials so that we can get back on tracks to our rights for the continued enjoyment of our beautiful town by its residents for the reasons we chose this town over others to live and raise our families. You know, there's things that we can do. We can have the Planning Commission review the current situation. And two, if needed, make a subgroup of residents that have been holding the brain trust of this issue, because it seems that that's the issue with Mid-Penn. They want to cry that we're inconsistent because of staff changes and council changes. But you know what? There's lots of other people in our town, including past council people and past employees that have held that brain trust if the current people in charge cannot remember. And to use our ordinances. When I built my house, Portola Valley had no problem at all to remind me of different laws and rules and current ordinances. Let's hold the outside organizations that are building in this town to those same high levels so that we can be safe, have low fire danger, and be able to drive through our streets safely and not have to look at glare from 50 cars when we're going to Roberts Market. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Anybody else in the schoolhouse? I don't see anybody else online, so I'm going to close public comment. Thank you all. All your public comments are extremely useful. I'm going to bring it back to the council. We have 15 minutes. We have 5 council members. So I think we have a choice here. Either people can be brief and we can start staff on this process, or we can continue this item. So do people feel like they can be brief? Because I think the goal here is to give staff some initial input and we can revisit this. But if you don't feel like that's sufficient, then we could continue it. So can I just get a rough sense for people feel like they can stay in their 3 minutes? Just a yes or no, just before we start.
If this is going to be one and done, I think it's coming back. If we give you direction, it's coming back. And at that point, we can dive into nuance. It's going to be clear we don't have time tonight.
Yeah. And that's my expectation is we're giving very high level direction to staff tonight. And then they're going to come back and then we can start getting into deep. But that's the only reason I would suggest that we could get it done in the time. So
I would just suggest that we zoom through all five of us and say what our higher goal is first. And then if there's a little bit more time, we can go into kind of picking the whatever, but sticking with the really, what is our goal?
And I would say that will take me more time.
Okay. Well, shall we give it a try versus continue? All right. So let's give it a try. All right. Who would like to go first? We now have like 12 minutes.
Can we set the timer, please?
I'm sorry.
No, we're not.
What?
She wants to set the timer on us.
No. The council doesn't get a timer, but I'm just asking council members to be respectful of the time. So yeah, no, that's fine. So no, we don't need a timer. So who would like to go first? Mary?
I would like to go first
Thank you.
because I gave my time in the beginning. I wanted to hear the public comment, which was excellent and very much appreciated. I think that speed is of the essence with this, and I've been saying that for the last 6 months. I think that we have to get a memorandum of understanding with MidPenn now, and I think we can do that before December. I don't think it has to be expensive. I don't think it has to take a lot of staff time. I think that would be my first thing, my first point of action. I think the conservation easement enforcement is something that all of the residents of Portola Valley are going to be much more effective than the town government is going to be at pressuring Post to honor its conservation easements in the ways that we find are meaningful. We as donors to the Peninsula Open Space Trust trust that they will protect their conservation easements. It's not the duty of the town council to remind them of that duty. So I would say strongly, I support number 3. I am unaware of what the role would be in that for the town, but the structure that I would like to see would involve 1 or 2 members from the town council, perhaps 1 or 2 members from the school board, and 1 or 2 members from the MROSD board, or maybe just 1. And I'd like to see that get started before the end of the year.
And
I think that's fine.
just to clarify, what you're calling number 3 is some kind of negotiated settlement?
It's called negotiated agreement between the town and MidPenn.
We had talked about different, or I just want to make sure we're
That's
talking
the
the same.
3.
Great. Okay. Who wants to be next? And again, please try to keep it brief. You have 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
I'm happy to go last. Others can go.
Okay. Rebecca, 3.
Okay. So I was going to just state my goal, and my goal is to dramatically reduce the impact on the site in terms of the 2 immense parking lots, and to find alternatives for the parking. If that's really that seems to me the biggest issue, just eliminating those 2 huge parking lots and finding alternatives. I think there's a way to study that. And so that would fall under number 2, the zoning regulations. And, I think we can present a way of alternatives to MidPenn for finding other parking. So there's a lot of parking that could be found. I do think we need to keep a positive relationship with MidPenn. So I would be in favor of some type of committee or group that would approach, and the staff as well, that would approach MidPenn and try to come up with some type of potential settlement. I think it's, perhaps a fool's errand, but I do think we need to continue communication with them. Let's see. Conservation easement, I think we should be sending a note to Post to get clarification on the conservation easement. That's number 4. And then in terms of CEQA, I would just want to know, have a very small study to say whether or not that would prove fruitful. If we can work with the school board to help provide funding for that, then that would be something also to pursue. So I'm falling on all 4, unfortunately.
Great. Thank you. Ellen?
Similar to Rebecca, actually, reducing the impact of the parking while keeping our kids safe and, pedestrians along that route. But I'm going to swap, because I'm going to say negotiated agreement with MidPenn by studying parking. So I'm I'm putting number 3 first, but I would like to see a parking study done. Like that would be a priority for me so that we could actually point to it when we are working with all parties about what are our hopeful solutions, like what are possibilities. And we don't have that technical analysis at this point. Along with parking management often comes pedestrian management as well because of the safety around parking that helps with pedestrian and pedestrian access. So and then I would I would love to update our open space element with our zoning regulations, but my understanding, Carter, respectfully, is because it's another public agency that is the property owner, that they have certain rights. Kind of like when the school district, that they were able to build without having to go through our permitting process, right? So it's, that the school district needed an encroachment permit when they, crossed public land to get to Alpine Road kind of idea. And that's a similar situation that we're in. So I'm worried about going for the, updating an open space element and zoning regs and doing that all, and then it won't make a difference because it's a public agency who has their own jurisdictional rights. In terms of the conservation easement enforcement, again, we don't have jurisdictional oversight because it's a public agency and they have enforcement. In terms of Post and MidPen have an long history together of working together and providing public access to their land. So scratching my head over that one. I don't think we can really do much, unfortunately, I'm just pessimistic. But I do think that CEQA actually, I personally think that we could weigh in and have comments, and that by law, then they have to respond to them. They can say that they have responded to them and that they don't, and that they have met the spirit of the law in their responses, right? So, and that's again why I would look at the negotiated agreement to hopefully find solutions for everyone, and first step to do a parking management so that we know what we're aiming for when we look at the options on the table with parking management. Thank you.
Judith?
Sure. Clearly, there's a lot of community concern. The community is engaged in this issue, and it should be. We're a small town. This is a property that's near space that everyone visits. I think given that level of community concern, we ought to ask staff for option number 5, which is what conversations, subcommittees, outreach to our current committees can help us all understand and pull together a more cohesive view of this. It's hard to react piecemeal for me. And I don't think tonight, this isn't a one and done thing. This is going to be a continual topic over the next year, 2 years, 3 years. And you can't undo it, right? So I do take that very seriously. But if staff could come back and think, how can we use current committees and commissions? The other random things that I'll just mention quickly, the school districts offer to collaborate. That's a conversation. I don't quite understand the proposal around attorneys' fees sharing, because we got to have ours and our council. So that's a thing to follow up on. I don't need the answer now. I would deprioritize the conservation easement based on everything I've heard, unless a miracle occurs and somebody has standing here. Fool's errand is not going to get us anywhere. The CUP idea with Windy Hill, if that can be part of a more general solution, I'd look at that. It's clearly scope creep, but it might be relevant scope creep if we end up having conversations that identify common things we're solving for. And, the MOU by the end of the year, I don't think that's achievable just because, I think that forming a committee to have specific, focus, great. But thinking we're going to get to a negotiation, we don't even know the other party is willing to negotiate and might suspect they aren't, it's not really going to happen. And I wouldn't go into a negotiated agreement until we know what we want through this conversation. So that's where I am.
Thank you. All right. I've asked everybody to brief. I will be brief as well. I would focus on public safety. I think we should investigate the zoning and CUP issues so that we understand kind of, if you will, what our rights are and how this is likely to go down at the end. I'm in favor of us forming a subcommittee. I think having a subcommittee of the council, I proposed this before, I'm still in favor of it. And I think we could work with the school district. I think we can also work with our various committees down. Once we gather all that information, then I think it might be time to consider a negotiated agreement. But I think at this point, we have no idea what we would be negotiating. So I wouldn't have staff put time into that now, other than start gathering information so we have something to negotiate. So I think that's where I stand. So Sarah, do you feel like you have enough information to get you started, or do you want to schedule more time?
Thank you for that feedback. I think there is a lot of different ideas on the approach. I'm not sure if I hear a priority per se, so it could warrant additional conversation. Or another option, I don't want to help propose a subcommittee, but if there's more conversations on the side that need to happen to then provide staff direction, I don't know if that's like a subcommittee task.
Okay, I mean,
leave it to you guys if you would like to discuss this more.
Yeah, no, I think you should get started. I think because I don't think you heard us say you should go out and hire a CEQA consultant immediately. I don't think you heard us say you should start working on open space element immediately. I didn't hear that from any of the council members. So I think that those can come later. No,
I think Rebecca had it. And I just want to clarify, we should never be in a CEQA process without our own consultant or lawyer. I do not want to get into it. So I would support that, just to be clear on that one piece. And open space element, I would get there, but I'd like to scope that out. Sorry.
Yep. So, and I think the conservation easement, it was sort of mixed. Mary's comment was more about, donors probably have more leverage with posts than we do. So I think you do have some direction. Again, the point I was trying to make is I think there's still a lot of information you can collect on what kind of CUP, if they showed up with all this done, what would our next steps be? And right now, I don't know what they are. I don't really understand what it is that we could ask of them. And what I'd hate to do, and this is what I tried when I talked to them, is I hate for us to get all the way to the end of this process and then have this fail, which is what happened when we were trying to do stuff at the historic stuff, because they kind of pushed, and then at the end, we couldn't make it work. And I think that would be unfortunate and a lot of money spent. But hopefully that's enough to get you started. And if it's not, then I'm sure the town manager would be happy to schedule more time. Great.
Can I ask a process question? Is it possible to go ahead and set up a subcommittee to investigate the school's offer and the school's offer?
Not tonight, since it's not on the agenda.
Okay.
Can I also ask, is it possible to have some sort of a preliminary kind of, you go through what we've said and then you come back with your questions and we schedule another sort of session like this? Not do a full on scoping, but just kind of go through it and kind of, I don't know, evaluate what we've said and try to kind of come up with more focused items that we could consider or something, as opposed to coming back in 2-3 months with a big, huge scope and costing and all that.
I think that's maybe the general question, or what I've heard so far, is to do a bit more of that extra step. So maybe it's not focusing on one, but I think I have a general idea related to CEQA, especially opportunities with agreement. And then if there's a potential cost associated with, we'll bring it back, or as much information as we can. Or if I have additional questions, I think that makes sense. But given what I've heard, there is some direction for that.
Yeah. And I think I hear a request to bring back an item to form a subcommittee I think that subcommittee could work with the school district, work with any MROSD identified member, and probably has value looking at the negotiated agreement. That is typically something that a council subcommittee might focus on.
Great.
Thank you.
All right. So with that, I'd like to adjourn this meeting. I would accept a motion.
I move to adjourn.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. This meeting is adjourned. Thank you. 7:01. We sort of closed it pretty close. Thank you again for all your public comments.